Living our Catholic faith can be challenging in a world that sows confusion. It's hard enough if you're an adult. It's even harder for young people, as well as their parents and teachers who want them to be good, faithful Catholics. So join us here in the studio to talk more about addressing all of that moral confusion is Rich May. He's a national Catholic speaker based here in Houston. He's taught catechism for decades. He also has his bachelor's of pastoral theology from the University of St. Thomas here in Houston, master's of arts in theology from Franciscan University in Steubenville. Rich, welcome in. We appreciate it. Appreciate your taking the time. You were telling me about this book that you wrote addressing moral confusion. Let's start with the basics, Rich, which is cultural relativism. You say it's one of the big challenges that people have. What is cultural relativism?
Yes, exactly. It's a lot of our youth, they get the Catholic education, of course, be it in a parish, a Catholic school, and then they go off into our society, and suddenly everything is a moral opinion. So there are no absolutes anymore, no moral absolutes anymore. And so they're caught up in a lot of the pop culture and so forth, and that affects them. It affects them a lot. And so the risk is, of course, eventually their Catholic faith, everything they've learned, is just a matter of opinion and fades away. And so we have to address this. So many parents come up to me and just very frustrated because they get the call from the school, their son or daughter's gone off to college, and suddenly get the phone call, Mom, I don't believe in God anymore, or Dad, I'm a socialist. Or what's wrong with living with someone? I'm not hurting anyone. So how do you address these? And so the goal of this book, because I have worked with the youth on some of these things here as well, is they have the obstacles that they encounter. We have to get over these. We have to learn how they think so that we can respond. And that was the goal of this book. There are exercises and things in here to help parents and teachers.
And of course, I think, Rich, that's challenging enough just with some of these ideologies in decades past. Now imagining it's so much more challenging with social media, with smartphones and all of this stuff, where not only are you fighting ideologies that are opposed to the Catholic Church, but there's so many distractions for young people of their time and energy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Where do you get your information from? In fact, the first chapter in the book is that moral opinion. Where do you get your information from? And while the book is probably targeting high school kids, I mean, you can start with that question at a very young age. In fact, the book has been in use at Elizabeth Ann Seton for a while. They're using it there, and it's eighth graders, because that's a very basic question. Do you believe everything you hear? Do you get the facts? Where is that? So these problems are facing parents and teachers as well at a wide age group as well. Yeah.
And you'd think some of these things would be obvious, right? Like following the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder. But even those things are questioned in today's society. How do you root it back to God and to Christ when often, it's such a secular world, people try to, like I said, disregard God or come back and say, well, I don't really believe.
Yeah, well, without God, of course, you don't really have any moral truth. You just have morality of opinion, all right? So, and of course, God is no longer dominant in our society today. So that's the first problem. Do you think these people robbing stores and burning flags go to church on Sunday? No. So that's part of the problem here. But to get them back to ground zero, to these moral truths that we know and believe, it's these obstacles we have to overcome. Their mindset, they're bogged down with these various dominant ways of thinking and so forth. So until we can clear that out of the way, then we can target the truths of our faith and come to a moral truths and so forth, as we're talking here.
That seems easy to say, Rich, but challenging to do, because like I said, you're having to wipe out all of this other stuff. It's quite frankly junk that they've been hearing.
Yes, well, that was the goal here of the book here, because these exercises, there's 9 chapters or sessions, you might say. It's about 100 pages, a little over 100 pages, but there are exercises in the back that actually the parent or the teacher can use depending on what you're looking at. For example, certitude. I have a chapter on certitude, a quest for certitude. How do we look at that? I mean, today, you spend a lot of time finding certitude to buy a new car. How much time you spend with that? Well, how much time do we spend? Don't we want certitude on our eternal salvation? So the exercises in there, you go through there, and finally you can see how people then can reprioritize how they think and how they react and get to the right direction in that case, yeah.
Sure. Tell me, throughout this program, we've been talking about the saints as good examples of values, people we can turn to. In our secular world, often the saints are also disregarded. We have a calendar that often just shoves out the feast days and tries to plug in other things like, National Pizza Day and whatnot. Tell me, what can we learn from the saints and their examples that can help us?
Well, certainly virtue and these types of things. You bring up a good point. Not enough, saints aren't the great role models, I think, as they should be with a lot of our youth. Most of our role models are sports, and so forth, which are great too. Some of them are actually good Christian people. But and so in the book, in fact, I have a lot of prayers, saints embedded throughout the book, which relate to directly that particular topic that particular section is dealing with. Yes.
Also want to be sure to mention our Heavenly Mother Mary, as we've been doing through this whole program. I want to point out, Rich, you actually are wearing a miraculous medal. How important is that to you?
Oh, yes, the miraculous. Legion of Mary, too, very important part of the Legion of Mary. I've been wearing it. I've always been wearing it, but not on the outside as much now because it prompts conversation, and I can talk about our Blessed Mother. And what a blessing to do anything on her feast day like we're doing here today, Wyatt.
Well, it has absolutely been a blessing to have you, Rich May, having you back on the program and talking about this book, Addressing Moral Confusion. We're always happy to have you on, and I know that you've spoken on a number of EWTN programs as well. So we appreciate you coming in. Rich May, again, National Catholic speaker. Again, the book is Addressing Moral Confusion. And we thank you so much for listening to Catholic Lunch Break here on AM 1430. I want to thank everyone who made today's show possible. Again, my name is Wyatt Goolsby. You are listening to KSHJ, and we'll be back next Monday at noon again for another edition of Catholic Lunch Break. Until then, stay Catholic, Houston.